Okay, so yeah, hi everybody. So my name is Sue. Thanks for that lovely intro, Richard. I run a digital marketing agency in Cambridge, which is where I'm sat today, all alone in my lovely big office with the team working remotely. I'm actually from Northampton though, and I haven't been back for a little while. So this is kind of the closest I get to a stroll through Abington Park this morning. So it's nice to be with you all. Let me just share my screen. So just wait for that big lorry to go past. Yeah, so what I'm talking about today is all about copywriting and how you can look after all of those little bits around the edges that you might not always pay attention to, which when you put it all together makes quite a big impact. And I'm a big fan of this concept of marginal gains, which I'll run through in a second. But yeah, it's all about kind of making these little sort of fine-tuning improvements, which will really help elsewhere. And so do ask questions as you go. I'm going to pause occasionally and check with Richard if there's any questions in chat. And then, of course, there'll be plenty of time at the end to run through things in more detail. So let's see if that works. Okay. So very quick thing on marginal gains. We'll focus on what you want to achieve. And then, of course, the main thing, which is how you do it. And I've got 5 really clear tips that hopefully you can try and put into action today or over the weekend or whenever you want to, which should make a big difference. So just tell me in chat, first of all, this idea, this concept of marginal gains, has anyone come across it before? Just drop something into chat, and Richard, maybe you can shout
Heard
out
about
some
it
answers.
in the cycling, British
Cycling, there we go. Yeah, that's a clue there. Yeah, so this is a really big clue. Yeah, so the guy on the right there holding out the champagne, which if anyone's been doing dry January, that'll be yours again very soon. So he headed up Team GB cycling and then also Team Sky and led people like Chris Froome, Bradley Wiggins, Geraint Thomas to victory in the Tour de France, which is quite an incredible feat. And he had this concept, I don't think he came up with it in the first place, but he certainly put it into practice, of marginal gains. So the idea was that you break down everything, every single thing you can think of that goes into riding a bike, and then you improve every little bit just by 1%. So put all that together, and then that's got a really, really big impact. So previously they'd be focusing just purely on things like speed, for example, but then he started to focus on all these little bits around the edges. So it's things like electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature. During workouts, they had these biofeedback sensors to get loads of lovely data. They tried out lots of different massage gels to see which ones gave the best recovery. Surgeons taught the riders how to wash their hands to reduce colds, which is, of course, a skill which will have been coming in quite useful lately. They redesigned the bike seats in the bus for more comfort. They painted the truck white inside because they found that lots of dust used to gather at the bottom, and that would get into the bikes and stop, make them work less efficiently. So they painted the interiors white. They tested fabrics in wind tunnels, so they gave the riders lighter racing suits. And then this is my favorite. They developed specially designed pillows and mattresses so that their riders could have the best night's sleep. So when you're getting up the next morning and you're about to climb this massive mountain for 3 hours or 5 hours, however long it takes, then they're in the best shape that had a really good night's sleep. So when it comes to copy, then you might think, well, Liz, what's she on about here? What's this got to do with anything? But it's got a lot to do with it, because a lot of your focus is always going to be on the big things. So it's going to be maybe your email marketing, what you're going to put in the newsletter. It's going to be your website, for example, or maybe a press release or that kind of thing. But then there's all these other little bits that you can pay attention to as well. All these little touch points where people interact with you and your brand. Maybe they've never even landed on your website. They're meeting you for the first time somewhere else. So as well as website page copy, landing pages, which you might be leading people to with maybe a social media campaign. There's contact pages, there's calls to action, lead generation forms, automated thank yous. So when someone signs up for your mailing list, what do they get? Do they just get this automated message that was built by MailChimp or is part of your website content management system? Or is there something that you've personalized, which maybe leads people around the site to another page where they might go and buy something? 404 pages. So this is where if someone writes your website URL incorrectly, they land on a 404 page. And I love collecting 404 pages. Some parts of Cambridge University have a really nice Quentin Blake illustration. There's some really witty ones out there. If you land on the wrong page on our website, you might get a little treat as well. So as well as your website, all of the copy there's stuff out there in the ether as well. So there's your social media profiles. When was the last time you had a look at them to see if they matched your current brand and your products and services that you offer? There's online directories like Yell. And I know a lot of people, maybe you updated them, you had a big splurge 3 years ago. And then since then you've moved offices or, working remotely. And so you might be on a different phone number. When was the last time you looked at these to see if all of that was up to date as well? Events marketing, if you use Eventbrite and Meetup, again, a lot of this information can just kind of sit there and get a bit out of date and doesn't always reflect your brand as it is now. Vans. What have you got out there in the real world instead of digital? And things like vans, posters, signs, all of these things, do these tie in with all of your other copy that's out there? And also App Store. As I was saying, people, they might not find that your website is the first place they interact with you. It could be that they come across your app that you've got, and maybe the text that you've got with that isn't really in sync with everything else that you've got there. Or you've got, and this is a big one that people do all the time, they include too many timely references. So they say this year or coming up in March, this is happening. Or new, our new launch, and it says 2018 on it. So I'd always suggest that you avoid too many timely references in your copy because they date like nobody's business. So yeah, Richard, there's probably aren't any particular questions on this, are there? But if there is anything, I can take a quick cue.
Looking so far, people were just commenting on the marginal gain, cycling, dancing, management theory. But yeah, no questions yet.
Yeah, there is a really good book that goes with it as well, which I'll need to dig out. I should look through that again. So yeah, let's think about what we want to achieve. And spoiler alert, it's more consistency, more conversions, and less waste in terms of sales and also your time. So when I'm talking about consistency, it's just seamless presence across the different formats. Whenever people encounter you in all of these different touch points that I mentioned, they should get the same feeling. It should feel intuitive. They shouldn't be thinking, oh, hang on, is that place has got the same brand name as that other place? Is it the same? Maybe it's a different brand. It should have that. You should have this kind of seamless presence where everything feels the same wherever people are. And I'm not saying the text has to be identical everywhere, but it has to be, you want the same sort of tone of voice. It's not just brand colors. It's the same sort of feel that people get from you. And to show you what I mean, this is Duolingo, for example. So you haven't just got the strong, really bright green and owl kind of branding, but you've got short sentences, you've got this very kind of friendly tone, learn a new language, we're changing how people around the world learn new languages. It's very positive, it's very upbeat, lots of plain English, and even the way that they have their FAQs. How can I use Duolingo? What is Duolingo? It's written how people actually think. And it's this very, very similar, very kind of seamless tone of voice that they've got everywhere you might meet them. And then the next thing you want is conversions. Nice bit of marketing jargon there, but you want to get people to do what you want. So this could be anything like click a link, open your newsletter. So, really good subject line. It means people actually open and read the thing. Share a post, download a guide. I was mentioning lead generation earlier. You want them to download that guide so you can get their email address, add them to a mailing list. Read an article. No point writing an article if no one's going to read the thing. You want them to book a ticket, fill in a form, and buy your stuff, which is a really important one. And then the next, last thing you want is, last thing in this list anyway, is less waste. So you want less lost business. And a big thing here is that I see all the time, people put together these lovely, lovely lead generation pieces. So you write a white paper that takes days to research or a downloadable guide, and you pay a designer to put it together and it looks really gorgeous. And then you're saying, oh, this hasn't worked. No one's downloading it. This is useless. And then you look at the page itself where you're expecting people to fill in a form and you realize, actually, I can't even see the button, or there's too much text. You've over-explained things. You've already led people this far. And at this point, all they want to do is click a button and get the thing. You've convinced them, they want it. And a thing that people do all the time is they over-explain all over again. And they ask too much of the person that's landed on that page. And each step of the way, so each field that you ask people to fill in, every time you ask them to take another action at that point, you lose people. So they fall out of this journey, out of the route to doing what you want them to do, which is clicking on it. So by simplifying things and looking at those little steps along this path, then you're going to lose less people. So you lose less business, and then you waste less time as well, because what's the point of putting together these beautiful downloadable guides, for example, making that video or writing that white paper, if at the very last step of the journey, you're putting them off, you're putting up barriers, and you're writing in a way that's causing an obstacle for people. So how do you achieve this? So 5 approaches that you can take, and all things that you can do this afternoon. It's only Friday morning, so you've got the rest of the day clear. You can put all of this into action. So the very first thing to do is start testing. So when was the last time that you bought something from your own website? And of course, if you are the business owner, then you're spending all the time getting the thing together, getting the products on there, keeping it updated. But I'm sure, you don't often actually buy something yourself, or you might want to get someone in your family to do that, or get a friend to do it, and just see what happens. And the same thing as well, send yourself a query using a contact form and use a different email address, or get someone else to do it, and just see what happens. And I'm always telling people, sign up to your own mailing list and see how it looks on mobile. So, and this is a big thing that people forget to do. We're always looking, we've got our lovely desktop, we've got our big monitor, we've got our fast broadband and all of this kind of thing. And we forget to see how other people see it when they're on a bus, they're in a hurry, they're holding a baby in one hand, phone in the other, Wi-Fi's down. We forget to look at our content from other people's perspective. So sign up to your mailing list and see what happens. What kind of automations have you got in place? Is there anything there that's out of date? So think, does it actually work in the first place? Or is there a broken link, anything like that? Where are you directed to? So are you being directed to somewhere current and up to date, or maybe an older page on a website? And then, do you like the way that you're being spoken to? So the way that you're writing these automated messages, and when you buy something, maybe you ask people to send in a review. How are you actually asking people to do that? Are you being nice about it? Are you offering them something in return? Or are you just giving them a very blunt message to say, right, you've bought this thing, now write a review? So really think about that. Think how you are being spoken to as a customer. And so, yeah, how can you be more helpful? That's always good. Can you be a bit more witty, a bit more memorable? Can you get a bit of humor in there? Because people really like that. And a big thing I'm seeing at the moment is around baskets. So if people put something in the basket and then they think, oh, I'm not going to buy it just yet, they go away and do something else. You can add all sorts of tracking code, which will send a reminder to someone later to say, oh, I think you've forgotten something. And this is a really good opportunity to be quite witty and friendly and not kind of finger waggy about it, and to really be a bit more playful with your brand tone of voice. But of course, make sure it's in keeping with everything else. But overall, what you want to be doing is leaving the customer feeling a bit more positive about you in some way. And the second thing is auditing yourself. So I don't know if any of you know about how to go incognito on Google. So just using Google as an example, because it is the biggest search engine. When you do a search in Google, then it personalizes the results. So I forget the actual percentage, but it's at least a third of your results that come up are going to be related to your own search history, so that it's tailored to you in some way and it's a bit more useful. But this is no good if you want to look yourself up on the web, because you want to see how other people find you. So you can go into incognito mode, do a search for your business, and then see what comes up. And then look at all the places where you appear. So websites, social media, I mentioned yell.com earlier, and you might be surprised actually that some things come up much higher than others for various reasons, which is worthy of a whole other session. But just see, well, actually, is everything up to date here? Are we using old taglines? Are we sending people to old pages that we don't want them to go to anymore? All of those kind of things. So look for consistency, and of course check if not. So you're looking to see if addresses, contact details are up to date, products and services, bios. I mean, I see this all the time. I suddenly come across something and it's from 5 years ago, and then I realize, no, I need to update that. So I'm always going in and either if I've got access to it, then I can update it myself, Or you can also just email someone and say, oh, that thing's a bit out of date. Would you mind using this text? And you always want to give people a correct text. Don't just say, oh, can you just fix it? I'd write something fresh and say, can you do this? And just make sure that everything's pointing in the right direction. And then the third thing is around simplification. So you're tweaking all these little bits around the edges, and this is a really important thing to keep in mind all the way through. So I've got a little quiz for you. This form that I'm about to show you, just tell me anything that comes to mind that might put you off from filling it in.
That will look great on a mobile.
Oh, beautiful. Let me click on chat to see what people are saying. Boring, busy. Gareth's eyes hurt. Rachel needs her glasses. I need 2 pairs of glasses. Too busy, small font. Stuck in the 90s. Yeah. What a I don't even know how to say that. Montague topics. Nasty font. Yeah. Oh, where's the attempt at humour? Hang on. Can't see that. I can see no jokes. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for your thoughts there. And this is the kind of thing that I was saying where, you finally reach this point where, okay, you need to give over your information. And it's just so ugly. And there's just too many things to think about. And you also think to yourself, well, why do they need to know half of this anyway? I get the point with the interests, because then that's going to tailor stuff to you. But there's just so much there. There's just too much. And I often find that if you give people too many options, you ask for too much information, then it's not just a case of them dropping off at every stage of the way. You just close it down completely and you feel like you just don't want to come back. So I always think if you are trying to get people to sign up for a mailing list, do them, ask for the bare minimum from them, because once they're in your evil lair, so to speak, then you can always ask them more later once you've got them a bit further in. But just to get them on a mailing list in the first place, then just asking for name, surname, and email address, half the time that's kind of all you need. Whereas all this other stuff, and it's so ugly as well. So something like this is much more simple, and this is your standard kind of landing page format. So you've got a really clear bit of text saying, yep, this is what we're all about. You've got some human faces in there, which is really nice. And then just a very simple list of things and a big fat button that says send now. So making it super easy for people. And as Richard mentioned with the other form, this works fine on mobile as well. This is my local doctor's. I'm surprised anyone ever actually comes in for an appointment, because it's terrifying, isn't it? There are so many things to click here that I just don't know where to look. And I must pop in sometime and just have a little word with them, and maybe just give them a bit of my time for free. Because I think you've always got to think about your audience as well. With anyone that is anything medical, people are also feeling quite unwell. So, if there's any time that you want to make the information clear and easy to access, then it's with people that are feeling under the weather. So this needs stripping right down and just, far fewer buttons on it. And to show you this in practice, I did a lot of work with government digital services around the time when there was a massive shift from all of these individual websites for HMRC, Charity Commission, government departments, all that kind of stuff, where if you think back, if you had to use one of these sites, you just think, oh God, I don't want to do this. And actually, when you look at sites like this for public sector organizations in America, they're still there. It's really painful. So there was this big move, and I think it was around 300 public sector organisations over to gov.uk, and I was very involved in the training there and in teaching people how to write for the web. And so what we did all the time was try to front load content. So thinking, what's the questions that people are asking and how can we answer them and put those answers right at the top of the page. So this is the old VAT page. So if you're looking at VAT, then I'm sure you're interested in the whole history of it, etc., etc. I don't think you are. I think that what you want to know is actually, what's the rate of VAT again? That's the thing that most people are asking. And you also see it with another good example is if you look up public holidays, bank holidays, then when you come to the the gov.uk page for bank holidays, then it tells you right at the top, the next bank holiday is 5th of April or whatever it might be. And then underneath that, it tells you what the next ones are. coming next in a year. And then it will tell you the ones that have just gone. And they've done their research and they think, right, let's simplify this. What's the basic information that people want to know? The majority of people looking at bank holidays want to know when the next one is. And then they want to know the ones after that. And then they're thinking, oh, actually, I just need to check back to see how much time off I've had this year or whatever. So, really think about what questions people are asking. Are you giving them your whole life story on the page? Or are you being really helpful and cutting it back and just giving them the basics? So can you ask customers to fill in fewer fields? Do you really need to know their age, gender, salary, address, all of these things? Or do you, at this stage, just need their email address? Can you give people just one button to click, not 5? I think if you give people too much choice, they don't click on anything, they go away. Can you use bullet points to trim the text? So I write in this way all the time, but as you see on my slides here, I give the text loads of room to breathe, loads of white space around it. I never write in block capitals. I don't do really big, dense paragraphs of text. I'm always adding in line breaks. I'm adding in bullet points, all this stuff to give it room to breathe, which is not just good for your general reader on the web, but it's also good in terms of accessibility. So anyone that's more visually impaired, people with dyslexia, then if you can give the text a bit more room to breathe, then it's better for everybody. And then also going back to George Orwell, one of his, I can't remember when he wrote this, 1942, I think it was, always use a short word instead of a long one. So if you are writing consistently all these really lengthy words, you can always write a little bit more in plain English and try and swap it for something shorter. And I know some of you, maybe if you work in legal, medical, finance, you might want to be using all these words all the time, but see which ones you can swap out for something a bit shorter. And it makes it more plain English and easier for everybody to read, which at the end of the day is what you want. So the fourth thing in terms of actionable things that you can do in the spirit of getting more marginal gains with your copywriting is adding more specifics. And I'm telling people about this all the time. So blog post titles, and I'll give you some examples in a second, email subject lines, the body copy on web pages, social media posts. So what you want to do is make things more specific instead of abstract. So these are titles from blog posts. So something that is abstract is like this: becoming crystal clear, interest payments, crazy talk, all that kind of stuff. And people do this all the time. You write a blog post first, and then you come up with this title, and it doesn't work if you just see it on its own. So seeing interest payments out in the wild, it could be to do with a finance blog, it could be to do with a dating app. I mean, you just don't know. Unless you actually read the blog post, you don't really know what the title's got to do with it. And the problem for you as a writer is that if people don't get the title, they don't read the blog post. So, and that's annoying for you because you spent all that time writing a blog post. So it's much better to try and make your titles, blog posts, also titles of web pages, make them more specific, see what you can throw in there. So for example, 17 creative gin and tonic cocktails, you know exactly what that's about. I'm also a big fan of an odd number if you do write any of these list articles. It seems a bit more fun. It looks like you've really thought about it instead of just doing 10. Gift guide, 22 STEM toy gift ideas for every little builder. So you know exactly what's in this, you know who the audience is, and you know that it's going to be written in this kind of quite easily digestible kind of way. How to put a YouTube video into a Word document. So this is the kind of thing that you see on YouTube, all of these how-to guides all the time, and you know exactly what's in there. And it's also, of course, very search friendly as well. So subject lines as well. And what you want to avoid doing here, if you're thinking, why is no one ever opening my email newsletter that I send out? It's probably because the subject line is stakeholder news week 4. People do this all the time and it's really boring. And in this newsletter, there could be amazing things going on. There could be explosions. There could be gorillas doing somersaults. I mean, all sorts of stuff. But they're not going to know that if your email subject line is stakeholder news week 4. So you want to tell people a bit more about what's actually in it. So Google it like a pro. This is a workshop we did back in December. HR advice workshop, redundancy and furlough. You think, okay, that's interesting. I need that information. I'll click on it. Award-winning vegan food in your own kitchen. missing a hyphen in award-winning, but I won't mention that. So yeah, pull out those little nuggets and see what you can put in the subject lines and your titles to tell people what the content's about. This is from the Science Museum, who do really, really good content on the web, actually. So they're not just saying, discover the incredible story in our blockbuster exhibition. They're actually giving you clear examples to bring that to life. So you can see Jimmy Carter's solar panels from the White House. Well, that's pretty interesting. You can see an ancient Babylonian tablet, prototype fusion reactor. So all of these specifics, they reinforce the line at the top that says it's an incredible story in a blockbuster exhibition. So yeah, pulling out those specifics, I can't say that today, they really, really help bring it to life. It's this concept of showing, not telling. This from Keogh, again, lovely piece of video, subtitles, good for accessibility. And they've got some specifics here. So you've got numbers, big fat numbers, 1,200 hanging garlands, 1 million dried blooms. And so it's really clear. And instead of saying, this is a really good exhibition, you'll discover some wonderful things, they bring it to life by pulling out all these little nuggets of information. So you need to think to yourself about show, not tell. Yeah, don't just say that something is amazing and interesting and wonderful. Give people examples to demonstrate why. I'm always thinking, yeah, what tasty little nugget can I pull out to spark interest? Sometimes in a blog post, you might have an interesting quote from someone that's really quirky and controversial in some way, and you can make that the title sometimes, or you can put that in the introduction. Anything where it might be tucked away down here, but you want to put it right at the beginning. Because the thing about web content in particular is that it's not a novel. So you're not leading people through page by page to get to the real kind of cliffhanger or the whodunit bit right at the end. If you don't put that at the beginning, no one gets to the end. So you need to kind of continually be flipping things around. Yeah, always think how you can place these things right at the start so people see it straight away. And just to show you something in practice, so I do a lot of work with Cambridge 105 Radio, a community station here in Cambridge. And I was chatting to John, one of the presenters, a couple of weekends ago, and he was saying, I really want to do more to promote my show to get more listeners. And I looked through his Facebook page and I could see straight away that this is how he does his posts. So don't worry if you've missed my show on Sunday, it's already available to listen again via my show page. And you see that and you think, oh, great, well, that's nice. And as you can see, he typically gets kind of one like on that. And I said to him, well, you're not telling people what's in it. And I said, so who was in your show last week? And he said, yeah, it's brilliant. We had this new track from, this particular person. Then we had this vintage thing from the 50s. And then I did this interview. And I said, well, that's great. And you're not telling anyone about this. So then he put this kind of stuff in his next Facebook post. And then he got 8 shares. So it was a really lovely difference. And, Facebook, it's difficult to get a lot of reach at the moment. And John's got a sizable audience, but, it's not huge. So to get 8 shares from that was really, really satisfying. It really demonstrates that, shows it in action, I think. And then the last thing, thinking about our little tweaks that we can make around the edges, it's beefing up calls to action. So this is the bit where you're telling people what to do. And a big mistake people do here is not being overt about it. They're being a bit too passive. These examples, I did some training not so long ago with some people who make yacht decking. So I now know quite a lot about yacht decking. If anyone wants to ask me anytime. So these are from the British Marine, their website. So as you can see, it's really clear. Phrases like join us, access, search, apply now, register now, watch the video, join us. It's all direct verbs. They're not being passive. So it's not joining the British Marine Association. It's not applying here. They're saying join us, register, search. So there's no confusion about it. People on the web, we don't mind it being, if we're told what to do. It's better than being vague about it because, everyone's got not very much time in the day. We need to know what's going on. We need to be pointed in the right direction. And then sometimes you can have a bit of fun with it as well. So the Natural History Museum, if you want an example of good email marketing, they're really good. And so you can go for the kind of fairly straightforward, find out more kind of call to action, or they sometimes get a bit playful. So things like enter the deep. But I would say if you are going to be playful and witty and do plays on words, you've also got to remember, are you still being clear about what you want people to do here? And so this is fun because it ties in with the whales and the sea kind of theme, but people still know that they need to click on that button because it's phrased like a button and it looks like a button and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's good to be fun and creative and quirky, but, you know, don't lose sight of the fact you need to tell people what to do. This is something I see all the time. Everything looks the same. I don't know where to click. I don't know about you, but all of these articles look the same. They're all on the same topic. They've all got the same heading. They've all got the same call to action. And so I looked at this and I just thought, I'm not clicking on anything here. And so, yeah, if you, with your calls to action, if you're trying to get people to do something, you want to, first of all, you want to reduce the number of options, and the options that are there, make sure they're different to each other, that they're distinct from each other. So yeah, are you being clear in these calls to action? Are they distinct from each other, or are they too similar? So something like sign up and join us and book now, for example, they might either be all leading to the same thing, or there might be variations, but they're not different enough to me. And it might be confusing. I might think I'm not sure where I'm going. And then, yeah, don't put so many in that people don't know where to click. I think people panic a bit and they think, well, I have put together this lead generation form. I spent ages on this white paper, so I better put loads of buttons in to make sure that people actually click on it. I think it's much better to have one really big one at the top of the page so that there's no room for confusion. So in summary, you want to test everything, put yourself in your customer's shoes. So this means actually buying something from your website, signing up to your mailing list, looking at it on your mobile to see how it looks, and go incognito, look at your business on the web, and then just look for any of those inconsistencies and see if you can fix them. Always see if you can find a way to, simplify things. So give people fewer options, fewer buttons to click, fewer fields when you're asking them to fill in a form, less text in general on the page, add more specifics, show not tell. So don't just say this is wonderful and amazing. See if you can throw in some examples to demonstrate that. And then get bossy. So tell people really clearly what they have to do, and then there's more chance that they'll do it. So lastly for me, before we have some questions, hopefully, then we've recently put together this copywriting checklist, which kind of came about because we know that over the last year, lots of people have either changed their business model completely, or they've adapted, or they're doing something different. They've brought out new products and services. And this is a really handy checklist for you to go through. You can download it from our website, and we give you the link. There you go. You can download it here and then just go through one by one and just tick off a lot of those things. So that will help you improve all of these bits around the edges and hopefully get more marginal gains. So yeah, any questions? And I should tell you about our website as well. Did I put that there? No. Well, the company name is Sookio, and we go by that name everywhere. So we're Sookio on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, all of them. So I'll hand over to you now, Richard, and see if there's any questions that have come through.
That was excellent, Sue. So many things to pick through there. The first thing I've written down here is that I'm going to send our content manager for the county council to watch this video back.
Right. Yes.
Because there's going to be lots of things that I've just seen that you brought up that I think, we could make that improvement there.
Yes.
Okay, question in from David. Have you ever worked with a company where you thought it was too boring to make interesting? And if you did, how did you do it?
No, that is our specialist area. We at the moment there's a brand we work with who we love, who do concrete. I've also, one of my most humorous moments in my career was proofreading a brochure about a tool that helps paint dry. So I was literally watching paint dry as I was doing it, which is quite funny. But no, I think that there's a real joy in taking stuff which on the surface is boring, and particularly who work in, inverted commas, boring sectors like insurance or finance or legal or anything. If you come along and you do something more interesting with that, it's brilliant. I think it's almost too easy. If you work in fitness and fashion and food, then it's all laid out in front of you. You've got the opportunity to have great visuals and there's always stuff moving and going on. But actually, there's a real art, I think, in taking something which is a bit more sort of heavyweight and doing something else with it. And often, in terms of copywriting, often it's to do with sentence structure. So you've got some really dense text, and even just by adding in more subheadings, by breaking it up so you've got more bullet points, shorter, snappier sentences, saying you a lot is really good, using more questions, So instead of just making these flat statements all the time, which people feel that they have to do because they think, oh, well, I'm working in insurance, or I work on a council website, so we have to write in this way. Who says that you do? Why can't you start your opening paragraph with a question? Why can't you break it up? Why can't you put in some fun subheadings and make it more interesting and readable for the user? Things like links that say click here. Why can't you be more, I was going to say have a bit of fun with it, but you need to make sure that it's suitable for people who are using screen readers as well. So people still need to know it's a link, but why not make that match the page that you're linking to and just make it a more intuitive experience? So yeah, I don't buy the idea that things are boring. I think you can always bring things to life, and sometimes as well it can be about better visuals. So a classic thing that people do in boring industries is use really dull stock photos of people pointing at a whiteboard, those awful graphics of it's like a funny figure of a man and he's holding a clipboard. You can go a bit more abstract with it and have a bit more fun. So yeah, it's not just about the copy, I think it's about the visuals that go with it.
Yeah, thanks for that. We'll test David on that later.
Yeah.
Question from Deborah. Did you work on the state pension website too? She recently went on that for a quote and was really impressed by how simple and clear it was.
Oh, God,
But
yes.
just say yes.
I was thinking, oh, no. Well, I mean, what I did was help people in writing for the web who'd come from all of these different backgrounds. There were always these really nice guys from sort of Newcastle way who worked in some sort of marine organization and used to ask me difficult questions about how you should write nautical miles and things, because there's lots of stuff about how you write dates so it's consistent, and lots of things about how you write that punctuation on bullet points and all that kind of thing. So if all of that stuff that we did back then is still working now, then that's great. Because it was all about how much can you strip it back? How can you think? People come into this website about I don't know what form they need to get a driving license. Half the people need the information, but some of them, they just need the form. So you just need to put that form at the top. There could be people that are always applying for this form, always need it, or a truck license, for example. So you need to have that information there, but then also some people just want the information, they just want to download it. So it's always about thinking, what questions have people got? How can I answer these as quickly as possible without spending hours and hours saying, I mean, the classic one that I hate, always telling people in the company about this, blog posts that start, well, of course, I'm sure you've all been wondering when our next edition of Cardigan News is coming out. And so take a cup of tea, curl up on the sofa, get ready and tuck in. And it's like, get on with it. Same with podcasts, people that ramble and ramble, just come on, and then you can get to the good stuff really, really, really efficiently, instead of boring the arse off people right at the beginning, and then they never get to the good sort of juicy nuggets. Next question.
That'll be a good quote. We'll add that last one on there.
I know.
I always think with design, I mean, if you just think mobile first, I think that allows you to cut a lot of the crap out straight away.
Yeah. I made an error myself on that front, actually. We've just redesigned, relaunched our own. We're doing two mail shots a month at the moment, and just redesign it. I worked on it over Christmas, and then I made one tiny change. I tested it, made one tiny change about the header image, and then didn't check it again. And then after it got sent out, someone I know quite well just messaged me privately, thankfully, and said, oh, it made everything go across on mobile. It had to scroll right. I'm like, oh no. And it's just one tiny change I made and I hadn't tested it. But yeah, that's another tip as well. If you do spot a typo anywhere with people, just message them privately. You've got to tell them. But it's no point doing a big tweet.
Yeah, I like to do it in public. Right, we're getting loads of questions in, Sue, so you're going to have to shorten your answers.
Okay.
If you want to the point.
Go for it.
Sally asked, do you have any top tips for how charities can make funding applications more compelling?
I think telling a story. So there's no point just asking for money unless you give people a really clear idea of the outcome. So including human pictures of the people that are helping, that you're helping, is really good. Making it really simple. And a thing that I see all the time as well is not just asking for a £10 donation or a £25 donation, like Refuge, the domestic violence aid charity. they, for example, will say, okay, £25 donation will buy, so much food and mattresses and stuff like that for a woman in need. And so anything like that, if you give people more of an indication of what they're getting and the people that they're helping, then I think that's really helpful rather than just asking for money.
Okay, thank you. Colour and pictures, how important are they to back up good copywriting?
Really important. Yeah, really, really important. You can have text that just kind of dances off the page and a really boring picture, and that just drags everything down because people, they process images. I can't even remember where this stat is from. I keep looking it up, but you process images 60,000 times as quickly as text. So a strong image can make the world of difference. And you need some in there, but don't overdo it. So I think the golden number on a mail shot, for example, is about 3. So you have one at the top and a couple of smaller ones and then text around it. It's about choice again. So if you give people too much on a page, then it's overwhelming. It's too much. And the other thing that I pick up, again, this is a marginal gains thing, try and have a big contrast between text and image when you're layering text over the top. So if you've got a cluttered image that's lots of sort of whites and yellows and greys, if you put white text over that, people can't read it. So you really, really want to make sure that if you layer text and images, there's a really high contrast. Try and maybe put a block color behind it, slice the image in 2, so you've still got the pretty stuff, but where the text sits, you've got some sort of block behind it so actually people can read it. But yeah, make sure the two work together and that they don't jar with each other, because sometimes if you look at it separately, you realize actually the text has got nothing to do with the image anymore. So it's always good to look at things fresh, get another pair of eyes on it too.
Thank you. Gareth asks, any tips or advice for getting out of the same style of writing? He says he finds he drifts towards writing very similar stuff that he's written before.
Read something else, preferably that you're not interested in. So back when I was doing copy all the time, and I was a freelance copywriter, if I got writer's block, I'd read something like a golfing magazine. So I don't really like golf. I don't play golf. I'm not interested in golf. Or I used to always listen to like the 5 Live phone in the morning to get some noise, to get some other stuff going on, sort of making a few sparks fly in my brain. So yeah, look around, get out of your own sector. If you're trying to write for insurance, don't look at what all the other insurance people are doing, because it's probably really boring. So look at another, say, a fashion brand or a hotel chain, and then that can sometimes kind of jolt you out of it. Otherwise, you're working with the same ingredients and just trying to make the same cake, if that makes sense. See if you can look at what else is going on and steal some ideas from there.
Brilliant. Yeah, talking of golf, the European Tour, Twitter, social media are unbelievable. Yeah, boy, right. It's not. Yeah, it's fantastic. The engagement they get, they make it really fun. They get all the players involved. They're making their own videos, and it's totally off the wall what they're doing.
Oh, well, there you go. I need to have a look.
Yeah, their social media team is just looked at as totally best in class in the world. So if anyone wants to follow that, give that a good look. Oh. Deborah asks, any tips on good fonts to use?
Another thing on accessibility is you want to kind of maybe keep off too much serif action going on, so too many swirly bits. We use some italics on our website as well, but really sparingly, so just in a few subheadings. So again, you want that high contrast, so very dark against a very white or pale background. Sometimes a very, very pale grey can look very nice, but actually people can't read it. So you want to try and have something, a lot of it is down to taste, but also make it as readable as possible. So your Helveticas, we use Open Sans on ours, Roboto, things like that. I could come up with some more actually, but things where, they're not swirly. You're not writing in block text, block capitals. It's really simple and clear. And then that's as readable as possible for as many people as possible. So any sort of swirly, frilly bits, then keep them for a minimum. We see these block capitals here. That's Babus Neu. We only use these on page titles. I'd never have like a whole paragraph of text. I can add some suggestions in to send around afterwards, actually.
Yeah, well, what we'll do is next week we'll send an email around to all the attendees with a link to this video, your slides. So if anything else you want to include, that'd be great. Gareth said, thanks for the tips. He's going to buy the golf magazine. Laura Graham.
Just don't talk to me about it.
Laura Graham has said that's a good tip for the writer's block. Thank you. Claire Ellsby has guaranteed another award at our Merge Futures event this year by praising at Digi Northampton for social media. So thanks, Claire. David's on this. I'm sure he'll supply you some prizes. Okay, just looking at the Q&A. Continuing with my question, Ari, colour and pictures to back up your copywriting. We need to be aware of copyright too for visuals used. That is a good point. I had that yesterday. I was talking to a class, digital marketing at the uni, and they were asking that question about can I take photos of people, and that came about copyright and permission to use various things.
Yeah, a lot of people think that because it's on Google and you can just use it, and you really, really can't. So things like Unsplash is quite good for free ones. We've actually got a subscription to iStock for, I think it's £20 or £25 a month, which gives us 10 images, which in some respects could sound like a lot if you're on a smaller budget, but actually it means that we're not wasting loads and loads of time scouring through other image sites and checking that we've got the rights to use it. And also I have been caught a couple of times where I've used something from a free image site and I've been under the impression that it's license free. And then I've had some lawyer on my case asking for 250 quid, saying that I didn't have the rights to use it. And so I've used it in good faith because it's from a site that says that you can do that. But the person that's uploaded it maybe has taken it from somewhere else. So because we're bigger now, then we do pay this subscription, and every time we download a stock image, I tell everyone really clearly, download the original and keep the reference number with it as well, even if after that we crop it and we rename it and all that kind of thing, so that we've always got that trail that the images that we're using we've paid for the rights to use them. I'm a big supporter of people in the creative industry, and I see photographers having their work used without credit the whole time, and it drives me at the wall. So always try and give people credit where possible.
I know you talked about photos and stock photos. I know at the council, when we do things here, new microsites for campaigns, it's so much more powerful if you use real photographs. If it's staff photographs, fostering adoption, I know they take photos of that. It's quite a sensitive area, but if you can take real photos, you can really tell, and it brings it to life. But obviously you have issues that on GDPR, you have to get people sign in. That only lasts for a certain amount of time. So you have to have that sustainability. If you're going to do this kind of thing, you need to keep on top of it and make sure that you're updating any policies that you need to.
And also anything around children. So, and I mean, this is a challenge that people come to us with quite a lot. They're saying, well, I want to do more marketing for my school or my nursery, for example, but then you can't take pictures of children. So we're always looking for creative ways, maybe just the back of their heads while they're sat in a classroom and that kind of thing. But that's always something to be really mindful around with, getting consent from parents and just that kind of thing. And it's the kind of thing that sometimes, until someone actually points it out to you, it seems obvious then, but before you didn't realize, because you just innocently taken some pictures of children in the playground for a marketing brochure, and it seems completely fine. But then you realize, oh no, actually there are some rules around this. So yeah, anything around photos, it's always worth double checking. Have you got the rights to use it, and is it within other regulations that might exist?
Yeah, you have to know what you're doing. Laura Graham has said Pexels is pretty good for free images, but gets used a lot. Rachel Bryant, I think you must know her anyway. Lots of wisdom, so good, great nuggets. Thank you very much. Really practical and helpful. So you'd have to pay her as well.
Yeah, they're veggie nuggets. They're not meaty.
Sally Wood, I have seen business websites where they have fake colleague profiles using stock images in an attempt to make their business and team look bigger than it is. It's so obvious.
That's just embarrassing. Yeah, you've got to stop that. If you do that, just don't. I think as well, people they prefer transparency. So if you are a one-man band, then it's fine to say that, it's fine to say that you work with associates or freelancers or whatever. If there's no point just saying we as if you've got 25 in your team, because at some point the clients are going to work this out. So, you may as well just be honest, I think.
When your colleague Rory spoke at one of our events last year, he was brilliant as well about copywriting. And he was giving some examples, because it was a healthcare session of like the government's examples of their messaging. And that was around the time of, staying safe, the space, those kind of things, and how some of the messaging had been a little bit weak maybe in some areas.
Yeah.
I guess with something like that, with a campaign that's gone on for so long, how hard hitting can you make something like that? I know they're looking to, locally now, they're starting to talk about stories of like the nurses and the doctors and showing photos and interviews of how under pressure they are. I mean, there's only so many messages you can keep repeating, isn't there, to keep that on. Any advice for like a long campaign like that?
I think that is very difficult, and my personal opinion is that it's been a complete disaster, and we've reached this point where no one really knows what they're doing anymore. I see what you're saying, that if you hammer it home too hard all the way through, then people get kind of fatigued. But I think they could have done with more consistency. Back to fonts as well. I mean, that's a session in itself. There should be some kind of gallery exhibition after all of this, showing the walls would be filled with the different fonts, typefaces they used across all of this. So yeah, I think it is important to keep your kind of underlying message consistent, but to change the creative quite a lot. And as you say, the human stories, I think, are really important. And this is something we're working with Huntingdonshire Council at the moment on a COVID comms campaign, and this is something that we want to do more of. And one thing that we're hoping to do is maybe talk to some nurses, people on the front line, and maybe strip back the visuals so that we only have their voice. You know, that can be a good way of doing it sometimes. So you're playing with the format, because if we'd been seeing all year people in intensive care units having a dreadful time and people on ventilators having a dreadful time, then, you know, there might have been this kind of almost fatigue of the horror of it all and the sadness. So sometimes if you take the images away and just strip it back just to the voice or just captions on screen, then that can be a way of kind of rejigging things again and making people go, oh yeah, sorry, I was getting complacent about this. But I do think your underlying message has to be very clear all the way through. So something like the hands, face, space, I thought was very good. Some of the other places, just other messaging has just been all over the place, and it's been the constant changes, I think, that people have had a hard time keeping up with. So yeah, but to answer the question, I think rejigging the format can actually work wonders and in refreshing it instead of just doing it in the same way all the time.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we've got time for one last question, 3 minutes to go. This is from Susie, and she's talking about, she wants to ask the question about copyright and colour. Also, making videos using music is incredibly hard to find and expensive to use. Any tips?
Yeah, I mean, there are stock libraries for that. So it's less of my specialist area, but I know in the videos that we produce, then yeah, I think we just end up paying for stock music. And it's the same as images, where you can actually waste hours and hours and hours trying to find something that's free. So you need to think about the best use of your time as well. And sometimes you spend so long looking for the right thing that you completely lose sight of what you wanted in the first place. In which case you need to walk away from it and come back fresh the next day, because you'll never find it otherwise. So sometimes it might be worth just investing, if you're doing a lot of videos, investing in some stock, a subscription to a stock music library, and then you might get better quality stuff, and then you'll be able to find it more quickly. But my general feeling with music on videos is that if you notice the music too much, it's also like copy, actually. If you notice it too much, then there's something that's not quite right about it. It should be intuitive in the background. It supports what you're doing rather than distracts.
Okay, thanks for that. Then Laura Graham just adds on the back of that, YouTube have free music. You have to ensure that you give credit correctly, but that's somewhere you can go if you're starting out. Brilliant. That was a really great session, Sue. I think we'll wrap it up there. Great engagement, one of our best sessions I think we've done as part of Digital Northampton. So thanks again for taking the time to speak today. As I said earlier, we'll email the slides, the video of this out to people. Please do share it. Post anything on social media at Digital Northampton. If you enjoyed the event, spread the word about the events. We'll be putting on more events. We're leading up to Merge Futures in June, which is like our annual showcase. So please do follow us, sign up to Eventbrite. Keep an eye on the website, and any ideas or suggestions for future events that you're interested in, please do let us know. So I'll stop the recording there. Thanks very much, everybody.